What's going on, guys? Going down a rabbit hole. It's your boy Dre, and today what I want to talk about is the ENTP, as I am an ENTP. And recently, I got typed an ENFP by someone, and I told them that they were totally wrong. And I want to explain why I believe that they were totally wrong, and give you guys, you know, my understanding of being an ENTP as relates to being an ENTP, and also some of the nuances of why this person specifically. Typed me wrong. Now, here's the thing. I don't really care about being an ENTP. It's just that I just am an ENTP. And so, like, if you know me in real life, you'll know that I am. So I don't really have to defend it, but whatever. So I wrote this stuff down, but more importantly, I want to tell you about my thought process. And I'll talk about this here. I'll kind of regurgitate it. But one of the things that I found that works really well for me as an ENTP is when I'm taking notes, instead of starting from writing everything down, you need to start from being able to speak about it, because the way that NE works, it's like your thoughts almost come from nowhere. It's almost like, and I say this, it's like a ghost whispering to your soul, because it really is just that. A lot of the things that I say, I really don't know where it comes from. It just comes into my psyche, and then I express it through my words. And as I'm expressing what I'm saying, as I speak on the tail end of what I'm saying, I find myself correcting what I'm saying. So a lot of the times when I'm starting off, things could be extremely wrong. But as I keep going and keep going and keep going, it starts to correct itself. So that being said, I really want to talk about this. So I think the main thing is what most people get wrong when they describe themselves as ENTPs is that they try to take this imagistic sort of like example and say that ENTPs can see all the possibilities and it's in the form of images and blah 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 blah, and that's totally false. Often at times when I get ideas, I don't see anything. They just come into my mind. It's like I just make connections without having to think about it. It's almost like my NE is non-existent, but I know it's existent. It just feels non-existent because of the fact that um, it's so innate. It's like I don't recognize it because how innate it is. So you know, like another thing is too, your NE will often be a response towards whatever thing you're looking at, like your external stimuli, right? So you are stimulated, your NE is stimulated by the thing that you're looking at, and then that can, take you into this other realm of like what this thing could be. And so I think when it comes to being an ENTP, the reason why we are so focused on learning new things is because of the constant chase of the what if. So every time you are learning something, there's like this what if, right? What if, and then like you start to go down the rabbit hole of these ideas. So I think for example, if you're INTP, a lot of the times people try to understand like what's the difference between being an INTP and an ENTP. And to me, what it is that I think you can tell the difference you find yourself if you find yourself in a situation where you feel beneficial by writing down your thoughts, then you're likely an INTP. Because for me, speaking out my thoughts is actually way better because I tend to correct them as I'm speaking. So it feels like I'm refining the stupidity that I'm saying in real time. Whereas as an INTP, you might want to think more gracefully about what it is that you're saying before you say it, right? And so I think this is why ENTPs are prone to rambling, because as we are talking, we are also listening to our own stupidity and correcting ourselves. And so one other benefit of like if you're an INTP that you might benefit from when it comes to understanding and reinterpreting the thought process that you have is writing it down and then constantly rereading and refining it. Where I think an ENTP, where they will benefit from in being able to articulate themselves better or refine their ideas, is by listening to themselves speak, right? I think if you listen to yourself speak, you can process everything that you're saying, you can make the connections, and then you can refine what you want to say. So the process of refinement of thought is through speaking, in my opinion, based off of what I've experienced. And so, um, So like this is, my experience is just my how I go through things. Now, I'm not going to say that things are as black and white as this, because I can understand other perspectives of people saying that they don't typically look at things in this way, or whatever the case may be. But this is just how I operate. When we're talking about I think the difference between, Ti, like, let me not say the difference, but with Ti is about questioning your own thoughts. So as I'm coming up with ideas or thinking about these possibilities or saying the what ifs and I'm chasing this, it's also basically analyzing what I'm saying and making sure that what the thoughts that are coming into my head make logical sense, right? And so if they don't, then obviously they have to make sense to me. And if they don't make sense, then what will happen is that I will probably disregard them, and I will try to refine my thoughts. So I constantly parse out, like, one thing that people tend to say about ENTPs is that they parse out the information of others, and they compare their thought process to other people, and kind of like take what you're saying and strip it down to its most basic fundamental principles in order to argue you. But I would argue that we also do this to ourselves. If I'm saying something and it doesn't make sense, well, the way that I make it make sense is by stripping the idea down so that I can make sure that everything is logically cohesive with what I am trying to say, right? And so we really do care about accuracy, but I will say that we care about accuracy. I wouldn't say that we care about accuracy as much as an INTP, because often at times what happens is once I think I've concluded something and I've gotten it down, I might just jump to the next thing and start building my own thing, because now I've dismantled something, but now the what if is in my head again. You see, the any parent, I mean, the any hero is what basically guides my thought process, and then Ti just comes right behind it. So that's at least how it works for me. And then when it comes to, um, I think the reason why we're more prone to going down rabbit holes is because we're scrutinizing our own thoughts, right? It's almost like digging for gold. And I'll give you some examples of this. So I'm a marketing professional. I worked in marketing for, the last 10 years. Only reason why I was able to do it, because I do have a tendency to get bored of things. But the reason why I was able to do it is because I'm working on a multitude of different businesses, and I'm basically solving the problem of how to grow their business through understanding the fundamental path in order to get there, right? And so, like, the challenge of solving the puzzle in of itself for these different businesses, because they have different systematic approaches, is what I found to be stimulating. And so, in in many cases, right, as I am doing this, I start to find like specific things that people are saying that just don't really make sense, and then I scrutinize it, and I tend to create my own framework. So a lot of people were saying that like SEO is marketing, for example, to which I started to realize that SEO isn't marketing; it's the byproduct of marketing, because there's a distinct difference between what you're doing in SEO and what you're doing in marketing, even though there are some things that they share in common. For example, your whole goal of SEO is to rank on the search results. And in doing that by itself, you are able to garner traffic to your webpage. But what you are doing in order to accomplish that in of itself is not marketing. You're using a set of principles in order to understand the algorithm to rank. And so, like, for example, if you never achieve the result of being able to rank on Google, then you technically are still doing SEO, not marketing. You only are doing marketing once you get the outcome of ranking. Messing with your title tags or doing all the technical stuff that it takes in order to show up on Google isn't marketing, right? So it kind of makes sense. And so this is something that I ran with. A lot of people disagreed with me, but now what we're seeing as AI is coming out, AI is starting to automate all that stuff, and people actually have to be better marketers because the tactical things in order to rank in the search engines don't matter as much as they used to matter. Right now, it matters more about your angle, the audience, who you're talking to, blah 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 blah, the fundamental things. Right. So this is an example of what I'm talking about, of like really scrutinizing something, listening to what people are saying, understanding that this is not what it is, and then basically redefining it. I redefined it myself by creating my own system of realizing that as long as I am following, the system that I've created to rank, then I should get the outcome, right, of getting the result for the client. So that's what was mostly fun for me. It was solving that problem and showing people that what they were saying wasn't really the truth, right? I think another thing is that often at times people tend to think that ENTPs are heartless, and the reason why they think this is because they say that we have no FI, which is technically true. I don't really see myself as someone who thinks about morality and all this other stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I want to inherently hurt someone. I have FE, and FE makes me more conscious about other people's thoughts of me and how I'm coming across to them. So there's almost an empathetic like quality there as opposed to a sympathetic quality, right? And so like the only place that I lose value in is not understanding the value of myself, but inherently because I understand, I want to say, quote unquote, the value of others, doesn't necessarily mean that my goal is going to be to, you know, uh, to trash these people. So while I might do something that seems immoral, I guess it depends on the extent to which the person themselves thinks that it's immoral. Like if they don't think that it's immoral, then I might not question if what I did is immoral or not. So it's like my morality basically is just like a mirror of the other person's morality. Whatever they think is important to them, I probably will try to be cognizant of that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that inherently my um my focus is to have these values that I uphold and that I live towards, right? It doesn't make me an evil person or a bad person, because there's been many things that I've done in my life that probably I shouldn't have done, but there's also been many things that I've done that aren't that bad, right? So I think it depends on the level of development from the ENTP. Another thing I will say too is that a lot of people have this is I'm going to jump back to TI real quick. I believe a lot of people have this misconception that um a lot of people have this misconception that in order to use TI, you have to deduce to come to a conclusion. And I will say that this is a good form of TI, but if you look at it from the other perspective, I think what TI is more about is motivation, not necessarily how they get there. And if you look at everything inherently, if we ask ourselves, okay, what is TI? TI is a cognitive function, it's a cognitive preference. And it's a cognitive preference for what? A specific motivation. A motivation for what? A motivation to learn the truth about something, right? A motivation to learn the truth about something to what? A motivation to learn the truth about something to the individual. So the individual wants to formulate a truth. Now, how the individual gets to this truth can be a subjective way of getting to the truth, even though some people will debate me on this. And the reason why I say this is because reasoning are like deductive logic, inductive logic, abductive reasoning, so on and so forth. All of these are learned behaviors that you learn from society. Society imposes this on you. You're not inherently born in doing this, and some forms of reasoning are easier than others. For example, one might argue that inductive reasoning is easier than deductive reasoning to internalize, because you can internalize inductive reasoning through the five senses, right? And so that's why it would be easier. So to me, it's like the main thing that we should really understand is what is the motivation behind what it is that you're saying, not necessarily um not necessarily like how you're getting there. Now, that doesn't mean that the how you're getting there is not as equally important. It is equally important, but it's important in the sense of if you are trying to build good logic. But what if one does not know that they are not building good logic, right? And they still think that they're coming to the truth? Then this is just not necessarily an issue as far as a cognitive function. This actually stems beyond that, right? This stems more to somebody's methodology of reasoning. Um, and then there's SI inferior. So the way that I experience SI inferior is, number one, I'm most likely not going to pay attention to many things that have to do with impressions of things that relate to me, right? Like my experiences. That doesn't mean that I won't like this. So, and the reason why is because my head is always in the clouds, right? So, like for example, there's things that I just don't do. I don't plan to go grocery shopping. I'm not like thinking about my past rigorously. I'm not constantly thinking about these things. It's more so the thing that, like, if I'm stressed out or somebody gets me mad, then I might mention my past, because I'll go into telling people like how I was able to overcome all these detrimental things. But this makes sense because it's my inferior function, right? But as my inferior function, what this basically just means is that I don't really pay attention to the minor details about my body or my experiences that most people would, right? And so this could lead me to make very careless mistakes. Like, for example, right now I'm on antibiotics, and the other day I ended up taking um, four uh, four courses of steroids when I was supposed to take one throughout the day, right? So it's just funny because I did that and I didn't recognize that I did that until after I did it. So these are the types of mistakes, right? Or not really thinking about what you want to eat, or not really thinking about like just the minor details in your life. So this is how I experience all of this stuff, right? Now, I don't know about you, but this sounds very ENTP to me, especially given the fact that my goal is always to break down people's interpretations and understandings of things. So yeah, this is me. This is ENTP. I don't care about it, but it is how I experience the world, and it's important. So I don't even want to say it's important, but it's the method of thinking and reasoning that I guess prefer. Thanks for watching. And didn't have my camera on today because I'm in the dark. So there seemed to be no reason for me to do that. Later.